March 2024, Toronto, the city of glass towers and frozen lakes. It was here that Amira Ben Ali, a 34-year-old woman, believed she had finally found the life she'd always dreamed of. Michael Chen was 42 years old, a successful architect with kind eyes and a gentle smile that made her feel safe for the first time in years. He was Canadian-born, the son of Chinese immigrants, and carried himself with a quiet confidence that Amira found irresistible. She had met him during a business conference in New York where he was presenting designs for a new resort complex, and after 6 months of long-distance romance, she had given up everything to be with him. Her job as a translator at a consulting firm, her apartment in Brooklyn, her aging mother who begged her not to go. What Amira didn't know, what she couldn't have imagined, was that the man who promised her a fresh start in Canada kept secrets capable of destroying much more than a relationship. Secrets that would turn her dream of a new life into a waking nightmare and force her to confront a horror she never saw coming. Amira had always been careful with men. At 34, divorced for 3 years from a brief marriage to a controlling businessman, she had learned to protect her heart. She worked hard, supported her mother, and kept her circle small. She wasn't looking for love when she met Michael at the Marriott Marquis during the architecture conference in September 2023. She was there as a translator, hired to help bridge language gaps between the developers and international designers. Michael approached her during a coffee break. "Your presentation skills are impeccable," he said in English, his accent distinctly North American. "But I heard you speaking multiple languages earlier. That level of fluency is rare." Amira smiled politely, used to men using her language skills as an opening line. "It's part of the job. Languages are just tools." "And the passion?" "Necessity," she replied. "Communication is survival." Something in his expression shifted, became more genuine. "I respect that. Adaptation is survival." They talked for 20 minutes about language, culture, architecture, and the strange loneliness of international work. When he asked for her number, she surprised herself by giving it to him. Over the following weeks, Michael called her regularly. Not texts, actual phone calls where they talked for hours about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up in Toronto as the son of immigrants, feeling caught between cultures, never quite fitting anywhere. His father had wanted him to be a doctor or lawyer, something respectable and stable. Choosing architecture had felt like a small rebellion, but it had cost him his relationship with his family. "They haven't spoken to me in 8 years, he admitted one night, his voice heavy. "I succeeded despite them, but sometimes I wonder if it was worth it." Amira understood that kind of loneliness. Her own father had abandoned the family when she was 10, and her brief marriage had left her feeling more isolated than ever. "Success doesn't mean much if you have no one to share it with," she said softly. "Exactly," Michael replied. "You understand." By December, Michael was flying to New York every 2 weeks. He stayed in hotels but spent every free moment with Amira. He met her mother, bringing expensive tea and speaking warmly about his intentions. He was respectful, thoughtful, never pushing for more than Amira was ready to give. "He's a good man," her mother said after his 3rd visit. "But Canada is so far." "I know, Mama. Be careful with your heart, sweetheart." But Amira's heart was already involved. Michael made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. When he talked about his work, his eyes lit up with genuine passion. When he listened to her, he gave her his complete attention. And when he finally kissed her on New Year's Eve overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge, she felt something she thought she'd lost forever: hope. In February 2024, Michael proposed. They were walking through Central Park, surrounded by bare trees and the promise of spring. He didn't get down on one knee. Instead, he took both her hands and said simply, "Come to Canada. Build a life with me. Marry me." Amira felt tears streaming down her face. "Michael, you don't have to answer now. I know it's a huge decision. You'd be leaving everything." "What about your family?" she asked. "Your parents." His expression darkened slightly. "They made their choice. You're my family now if you'll have me." She thought about her small apartment, her job with its predictable routine, her mother growing older and more fragile each year. Then she thought about possibility, about love, about the chance to start fresh in a place where her past didn't define her. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." The immigration process took 3 months. Michael hired an expensive lawyer to expedite her spousal visa. They married in a small ceremony at City Hall in Manhattan in April, with only Amira's mother and 2 of her cousins present. Michael's side was empty. "I'm sorry my family isn't here," he said, squeezing her hand. "One day they'll realize what they missed." Amira's mother cried through the entire ceremony. Afterward, she pulled her daughter aside. "Sweetheart, are you sure about this? You barely know him." "Mama? Love him. Love isn't always enough. Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll call me every day." "I promise." Amira arrived in Toronto in May 2024. Michael picked her up from Pearson Airport with flowers and a smile that temporarily erased her jet lag and nervousness. The drive to his home in North York took 40 minutes through streets that seemed impossibly clean and organized compared to New York's beautiful chaos. "It's not much," Michael said as they pulled up to a modern 3-story house with a manicured lawn. "But it's ours now."
Hello guys, if you'd like to support our team that brings you the best true crime stories every week, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps us keep going. And we'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Thank you for being with us and enjoy the rest of the video.
The house was stunning, filled with natural light and minimalist furniture that showcased Michael's architectural eye. But as Amira explored her new home, she noticed things that seemed odd. All the windows had heavy blackout curtains. The basement door had 3 separate locks. There were security cameras in every room except the bathrooms. "Is this normal in Canada?" she asked, gesturing to a camera in the kitchen. "Toronto can be dangerous," Michael replied quickly. "I travel a lot for work. I need to know the house is secure." The first few weeks were an adjustment. Amira was used to the sounds of New York, the constant energy, the bustling streets, the perpetual hum of life. Toronto was quieter, more orderly, almost sterile. She spent her days unpacking, exploring the neighborhood, and video calling her mother. Michael was attentive but busy, often working late in his home office. "I'm finishing a big project," he explained. "Once it's done, we'll take a proper honeymoon. I'll show you Niagara Falls, Montreal, Vancouver. You'll love it." But there were small things that bothered her. Michael insisted she not share their address with anyone, including her mother. "For security," he said. He asked her to delete her social media accounts. Start fresh. New country, new life. He discouraged her from making friends in the neighborhood. "People here are cold. Not like back home. Give it time." One evening in June, Amira was putting away laundry when she found a locked drawer in Michael's dresser. She tried her key ring and to her surprise one of the house keys fit. Inside were passports. 7 of them, all Canadian, all with Michael's photo but different names. Michael Chin, David Lee, James Wong, Robert Tam. Each with different addresses, different dates of birth. Her hands trembled as she flipped through them. Why would he need multiple identities? She heard his footsteps on the stairs and quickly closed the drawer, her heart pounding. "Amira? Where are you?" "Just finishing the laundry," she called, forcing her voice to sound normal. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay next to Michael, listening to his steady breathing, wondering who the man beside her really was. The next morning, she decided to search the house while Michael was at a client meeting. She started with the home office, but everything was locked, password protected. The basement door with its 3 locks remained impenetrable. But in the garage, behind boxes of Christmas decorations, she found a filing cabinet. Inside were bank statements, dozens of them from different banks, different names. All showing substantial balances. Hundreds of thousands of dollars moving between accounts in complex patterns. There were also newspaper clippings, all from different Canadian cities. Missing woman in Vancouver, age 31, last seen with boyfriend. Body found in Calgary apartment, woman stabbed 17 times, boyfriend missing. Montreal police seek man in connection with domestic violence case. Each clipping had a small mark in the corner, a check mark in red ink. Amira felt her legs go weak. She stumbled to the garage floor, the clippings scattered around her. This couldn't be real. Michael was kind, gentle, loving. There had to be an explanation. But then she remembered all the small red flags she'd ignored. His refusal to introduce her to anyone. The security cameras everywhere. The way he sometimes looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read, something cold and calculating that disappeared so quickly she thought she'd imagined it. She heard a car in the driveway. Michael was home early. Panic seized her. She quickly gathered the clippings, shoved them back in the cabinet, and ran upstairs just as the garage door opened. "Amira?" Michael called. "In the kitchen," she replied, her voice shaking slightly. He appeared in the doorway, his expression pleasant. "I finished early. Thought we could have lunch together." She forced a smile. "That sounds nice." But as she moved to the refrigerator, she saw his eyes flick to the garage door. Did he know she'd been down there? Had the cameras captured her? "Everything okay?" he asked, moving closer. "You seem nervous." "Just tired. I didn't sleep well." He studied her face for a long moment. You should rest. I'll make lunch. That afternoon, while Michael was in his office, Amira tried to access the internet on her phone to search for the women in the clippings. But the Wi-Fi wasn't working. When she tried to use her cellular data, she discovered Michael had canceled her phone plan. It was going to cost too much, he explained when she confronted him. I'll add you to mine. It'll take a few days. She was trapped in the house with no way to communicate with the outside world. That night, Amira pretended to take a sleeping pill Michael had suggested would help her adjust to the new time zone. Instead, she hid it under her tongue and waited. At 2 a.m., she heard Michael leave the bedroom. She waited 10 minutes, then followed. He was in the basement. She could hear sounds through the locked door. Movement, something heavy being dragged, the distinct sound of digging. She crept back to bed, her mind racing. The next morning, she told Michael she wanted to call her mother. The phone plan isn't set up yet, he reminded her. But Mama will worry if she doesn't hear from me. His expression hardened slightly. She needs to learn to let go. You're starting a new life here. Michael, she's my mother. And I'm your husband. His tone was final. Give it a few more days. Amira realized with growing horror that she was a prisoner. Not in the obvious sense, there were no chains or locked rooms, but she had no money of her own, no phone that worked, no transportation, and no idea how to navigate a city where she knew no one. She had left everything behind for this man, and now she was completely dependent on him. She thought about the women in the newspaper clippings. Had they realized too late like her? Were they buried in basements like the one beneath her feet? That afternoon, while Michael was in the shower, Amira grabbed his car keys and ran. She didn't know where she was going, just that she had to get away. She made it to the car, started it, and was backing out of the driveway when Michael appeared in the doorway, dripping wet, his face contorted with rage. She'd never seen him look like that before, all the gentleness gone, replaced by something monstrous. She floored the accelerator, not looking back. She drove randomly, no destination in mind, until she saw a police station. She parked crookedly and ran inside, gasping. Please, I need help. My husband, the officer at the desk, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, immediately came around. Slow down. You're safe here. What's your name? Amira Ben Ali. Amira Ben Ali. She was crying now, the words tumbling out. The multiple passports, the newspaper clippings, the locked basement, the way he'd isolated her. The officer's expression grew increasingly serious. How long have you been in Canada? 6 weeks. And you came here to marry him? Yes, but I didn't know. I thought he was. Another officer had joined them, a tall man who introduced himself as Detective Morrison. Mrs. Chen, we need you to tell us everything from the beginning. Over the next 3 hours, Amira told them everything. When she mentioned the passports and the names, Detective Morrison's face went pale. David Lee, he said quietly. That name is connected to a cold case in Vancouver. Robert Tam to one in Calgary. He looked at his colleague. We need to get a warrant for that house. Now. The investigation moved quickly. By that evening, police had surrounded Michael's house. He surrendered without resistance, that same pleasant expression on his face. This is a misunderstanding, he told them calmly. My wife is confused. New country, cultural stress. But when police searched the house, particularly the basement, they found horrors that would take months to fully process. 3 bodies buried in the concrete floor, all women in their late 20s to early 30s, all immigrants, all married to Michael under different identities. There was also a room filled with surveillance equipment, computers with detailed files on each woman, notes on their vulnerabilities, their immigration status, their lack of local connections. It was a predator's lair, carefully constructed over more than a decade. Detective Morrison explained it to Amira gently, though there was no way to soften such news. Michael Chen isn't his real name. We're still determining his actual identity. He's been doing this for at least 12 years, targeting immigrant women who were isolated and vulnerable. The multiple identities allowed him to move between cities, establish new lives, and avoid detection. Why? Amira whispered. Why did he do this? We may never fully understand. Some people are simply broken in ways we can't fix. But he seems so normal. So kind. That's what made him effective. He knew exactly how to present himself, what to say, how to make you feel safe. Amira thought about her mother's warning, her instinct that something was wrong. She'd ignored it all because she wanted so desperately to believe in love, in a fresh start, in the possibility of happiness. The trial took place 8 months later. Michael, whose real name was determined to be William Park, a 44-year-old Canadian citizen with a history of violence dating back to his teens, showed no remorse. He sat in the courtroom with that same pleasant expression, as if he were attending a business meeting rather than his murder trial. Amira testified, her voice strong despite her fear. She described the manipulation, the isolation, the moment she found the passports and realized her life was in danger. When the prosecutor asked why she thought he had targeted her specifically, she said, "Because I was alone. Because I had left everything behind to be with him. Because he knew no one would miss me right away if I disappeared." The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts, 3 counts of first-degree murder, kidnapping, fraud, and a dozen other charges. The judge sentenced him to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 75 years. Amira returned to the United States. She moved back to New York, finding a small apartment in Queens, and slowly began to rebuild her life. She couldn't bear staying in Canada, couldn't stand the memories that haunted every corner of that city. Back home, she found work as a translator again, saw a trauma therapist twice a week, and reconnected with old friends who had worried when she disappeared to Canada. She met other survivors, women who had escaped similar situations, and together they formed a support group. She started speaking publicly about the warning signs, about how predators target vulnerable people, about the importance of trusting your instincts. "I ignored every red flag," she told audiences. "I let hope blind me to reality. But survival means learning from our mistakes and helping others avoid them." 2 years after her escape, Amira received a letter from the prison. William Park wanted to meet with her. Her therapist advised against it, but Amira felt she needed closure. The meeting took place in a stark room with guards present. William looked the same, that pleasant expression still in place. "Thank you for coming," he said calmly. "I wanted to explain." "There's nothing to explain. You're a monster. I'm a man who saw opportunities and took them. You were so eager to believe in love, so desperate for a new life. It would have been almost wasteful not to." Amira stood up. "I came here to see if you felt any remorse, any humanity. But you're empty. And I'm done letting you occupy any space in my mind." She walked out without looking back. December 2026, nearly 3 years after arriving in Canada, Amira stood in a community center in Brooklyn. She was hosting a workshop for women about recognizing abusive relationships and understanding their rights. Her mother had finally stopped crying every time they spoke, and they video called every day. Amira had even started dating again, cautiously, with clear boundaries and a therapist's support. A young woman approached her after the workshop. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Your story, it helped me realize I need to leave my boyfriend. I've been making excuses for him, but you're right. The warning signs are there." Amira took her hand. "You're brave. And you're not alone." As she watched the woman walk away with new determination, Amira realized something profound. William Park had tried to destroy her, but instead, he had transformed her into someone who could save others. It wasn't redemption, nothing could redeem what he had done, but it was purpose. And sometimes purpose is enough. In his cell, William Park kept meticulous notes about Amira. She was the only one who had escaped, the only one who had seen through him in time. He studied every interview she gave, every workshop she hosted, trying to understand what he had missed in his assessment of her. The answer was simple but beyond his comprehension. She had been strong in ways he couldn't measure, ways that had nothing to do with isolation or vulnerability. She had survived because she chose to, because she found her voice when it mattered most. And in the end, that made all the difference.